Hi, and welcome back to my channel. The weather hasn't been agreeing with me very well, so I haven't been doing any work on the truck. But sooner or later it's going to warm up, hopefully. I wanted to do a video. I usually don't put myself in the videos, but I wanted to do a video on how I got started in racing. And with that, we need Sherman, and Mr. Peabody, and the Wayback Machine. So here we go. Back when my dad was a teenager in high school, he had a friend named Tony Bettenhausen, and they used to be, good friends. And later on, Tony had a son named Gary Bettenhausen, and they are from the IndyCar fame. So anyway, after high school, my dad joined the Army because World War II was going on, and he got wounded, he got shot, and he came back to the States, and he relocated to Chicago, Illinois. And that's where he started working on cars, and he started racing stock cars. Now there was 2 stock car tracks in Chicago, believe it or not. And so that's what he was doing. And sooner or later he met my mom and they got married. Excuse me. And they my mom told my dad he needed to find a real job and quit doing the stuff that he was doing. So he did. And they bought a brand new house in the suburb, south suburb of Chicago, and they moved, and that's where I came along. Now, it wasn't until I was 6 years old, and I always used to watch my mom cook on Sundays because she used to make fried chicken and all the fixings, and that was our Sunday meal. And with that, the TV at the time, CBS had, I think they call it Winston Cup. I don't know, it's NASCAR now, but they had that on TV. And so we used to eat our dinner and watch the stock car race. And so one day I was in there watching my mom cook on Sunday. My dad was outside working on the car, and she said, quit watching me, go out there and help your dad. And so, okay, I always do what I was told. And so I went outside and I went around the back of the car, and I seen these big black ants running around. I was like, holy cow. So my dad's socket set was there, and I took his sockets and I was shooting them like marbles at the ants. And the next thing you know, excuse me. Next thing I know, my dad come up behind me and yelled at me, told me, pick them up and get over here and watch me. So I picked up all the sockets, and I went over where he was working, and I sat down on the tire, and he showed me he was doing brakes. And that was my first automotive lesson on cars. And so we moved forward on the Wayback Machine to where I was about 12 years old. My dad had got these plans for a wooden go-kart, and I'll show you a picture of that. And we went out in the garage and we built it. And then he went to a lawnmower place and he bought the biggest motor he could for us. And he put it on the workbench that he had in the garage, and he used clamps to hold the motor onto the workbench, and he was going to show me how to start it. So he gave it a pull and nothing happened. He gave it another pull and it started. Well, gosh, it vibrated so bad it wanted to fall off the bench. And as it started to slip and slide, like a dummy, I put my hand on top of the head of the engine, which is where the spark plug was. And of course it zapped me and shut the motor off, so it didn't fall off the bench. But then I started to cry, and my dad yelled at me and said, quit being a little girl. It was like, oh wow, he's never said that to me before. So we mounted the motor to the go-kart, and it needed a clutch. And he goes, well, here, I'm going to teach you something. And he gave me $20. He says, go to the lawnmower shop, take your bike and go to the lawnmower shop and go get a clutch. So I got on my bike and hauled butt, got to the lawnmower place, and I found the clutch, it was in a plastic bag, and I got it, and I went up front and I set it on the counter, and the guy looked at me and he said, that'll be $25. I thought, oh crap, all I got's 20. So I gave him the $20 I had, and I said, well, I could dust or sweep or something for the rest of it. And he goes, nah, just take it and go. So I grabbed it and I hauled butt. I went as fast as I could home on my bike. So my dad and I, we put the clutch on the go-kart, and we put the chain on there, and next thing you know, I was riding along 25 mile an hour or so down the street. It was pretty cool. It was a lot better than my bike, no pedaling. And so it was a lot of fun. And that was that. And then later on, my dad worked with a guy that used to belong to the IKF, the International Karting Federation, and he had what's called a sprint car, and they weren't using it, and he told my dad if he wanted to, he would sell it to him. So my dad and I went over to his garage, and I got to sit in it, and it was a metal frame, metal flake blue color. Man, it was cool. And the guy said it's called Roadrunner, and the first thing that came to my mind is Richard Petty's stock car being a Roadrunner. I thought, how cool is that? So my dad picked that up for me, and there was a track not too far from the house. It was like a quarter mile, all twisty, turny, tight turns, and that's where you raced them at. And so we went there, a few weekends, and I don't know, I kept it on the track and everything, but my dad, I don't know, he just wasn't impressed. So there was a go-kart track not too far from, not a go-kart track, a go-kart shop not too far from our house called John's Kart Shop. And they bought and sold karts, and new and used, and you could buy tires there or get your stuff fixed there. So we went there, and there was what was called an enduro kart, and the kart was owned by a guy that had a championship in IKF. So my dad pulled it out and told me hop in it, and you don't sit up in it, you lay down in it. So I sat in it, and I fit good and everything. And he said, what do you think? I said, yeah, it's cool, And so he traded in my Roadrunner and money for this one, and off we went. Well, it was no longer a quarter mile track, it was big tracks. And the first race we went to was West Allis, Wisconsin, or it was Milwaukee, and it was the Milwaukee Mile, and that's where the fairgrounds is at. And so we went down under a tunnel underneath the track to get to the inside, and once you got to the other side, you looked, and man, there's bleachers and seats, and holy cow, I never seen anything like that. And so I thought that was fantastic. And so we got the go-kart and set it up, and there was a first practice session, and I ran the first practice, and I come back and I told my dad, I said, it's not pulling like it should. And I said, I think it needs a gear change. So we changed gears, and the second practice came out, and the guy that I got the Roadrunner from was out there practicing too. And I seen him, and I caught up to him and I passed him. And after that session was over, he come by our little pit area there and said, man, what did you guys do to this thing? It's flying. So I told him, well, I don't know what we did. So keep it secret. So we raced, and I finished, and I didn't break anything, and that was all that mattered, to get some track time in. I never drove the thing before. And so then the following weekend, we decided to go really far away to Brainerd, Minnesota. And that was a large track. And I ran there, and we started, and I finished, and didn't break anything, so that was that. And we come home, and then another weekend we went to Grattan, Michigan, just the other way. It had rained all that morning, and when we got there, it was a wait before we could practice, and then they turned us loose, and man, that track was slippery. I didn't like it at all. And then the next thing you know, the motor started messing up, and I don't know what was going on, but it was just wasn't running right. And I come back in, and I told my dad something's wrong with the motor, and so we didn't mess with it. We just loaded everything up and left. So I think the next weekend after that, we went to Indianapolis Raceway Park in Indiana, and it was the first time there, and I really liked that track. It was so cool. It was fun to drive. It was wide open, real comfortable. You didn't get upset about anything. And of course we started and finished and didn't break anything, so another good race. So then we went to a track called MIS, Michigan International Speedway, and that's a stock car track. And we went there, and you get on the wall, and it was crazy. You're doing 120 mile an hour, 2 inches off the ground on this wall, and it was so cool. And after the practice session, I came in, and my dad, it's really like the first time he really said anything like this, but he goes, "Man, I'm really proud of you." That's why. And he goes, "You're faster, your lap times are faster than the Trans Am cars." I was like, holy cow, no kidding. So I was doing good. But it was another track where I was new at, and so we just started and finished, and nothing broke. So that was a good day. So on to the next season. Went to some of the similar tracks and things like that. And we went to Indianapolis Raceway Park, and this time it was for the Nationals. Now, when you check into the race, you get a number, and they assign you a starting position. So it wasn't like you qualify or anything to get a starting position. It was just that's what they gave you. And so I think I started 15th out of 42 karts. So remember, the race is an hour long, and you don't get any laps counted. It's just an hour from the start to the finish. And we started the race, and I was doing okay. I was passing some people, and I felt comfortable and everything. We went down the straightaway into the first turn, and it was kind of a real soft turn. And all of a sudden, my go-kart spun, and it spun around and did like a 360. I still had my foot on the throttle, and I was still going, and I was still in the middle of the turn. It was like, holy cow, what happened? So I kind of freaked out, and I was real careful after that. And I went back to the pit area. Now, this is about the 40-minute mark of the hour. I stopped at the pit area, and my dad goes, "What's wrong, And I said, "There's something goofy going on." He said, "What?" And I said, "I don't know." And for some reason, he started stepping on the tires, and he stepped on the one back tire, and it was flat. I was like, oh, great. And he goes, "Go, get out of here, go." And I was like, really? So the way I went, and I finished the rest of the hour, there's only a couple laps left, and we were in the tech spot, and I finished the tech, and I passed. And when I was getting ready to push the cart back to the pit, the guy walked up to me with this big trophy, and it was for 5th place. And so how cool, out of 42 cars, I finished 5th. And that's a national event. So that was good. I did good that day. So the next race we went to, my dad had made some changes to the motor and put 2 carburetors on it. And the next race we went to was in Rockton, Illinois. It was called Black Hawk Farms, the track was. And it was a good track. I didn't mind it. I felt comfortable. The 2 carburetors definitely faster. And we went to start the race, and for some reason the motor like flooded or something. It didn't start right up, and everybody else took off. And then we finally got it started, so I was all the way in the last spot. I made a couple of turns and caught up to the pack, and I was going to pass this guy in a turn on the outside. And it was funny because my peripheral vision, when I was going around him on the outside, my peripheral vision, I seen him, look at me like, what the heck you doing? And it was funny. But I hung in there and made it work. And we were going along, and it was right around, I think around the 35-minute time, and it started acting up. The engine started acting up. And I thought, maybe we're low on fuel, so I better stop. So I stopped at our pit area thing, and my dad goes, what's going on? I said, I think we're out of gas. And so he checked it, and yeah, we were really low. So he ran to go get gas, and when you put gas in it, you can't be sitting in the cart, and you can't be have the engine running. So I had to get out and stand there. Well, I went and got our gas, and I'm watching everybody go by. I'm thinking, wow, this really stinks. And then I got back in it, we filled it up, and he started it up, and away I went. And I was doing pretty good. We finished the race. I went into the tech area, and I passed tech, and one of the tech guys walked up to me, and it was a 3rd place trophy. So it was like, wow, holy cow, I finished 3rd after all of that. And so that was our last race of the season. And we went on a couple more years like that, same things. And then I was kind of, being really dependent on my parents, and and I was at home and was getting older, and I felt like I needed to be more independent. And at the time, Vietnam was going on, and I had a draft card. And so I wasn't going to go in the Army. I didn't want to come back like my dad did, wounded. So I went to the Navy recruiter, and there was a senior chief there, and I went in there and I sat down, and he said, boy, what can I do for you? And I said, I want to join. And he goes, okay. And he got this folder out, and he got some paper out, and he's looking at it. And he goes, well, what do you like to do? I said, well, I like working on cars, and I race karts. And he goes, oh, okay, good. You'll be a good jet engine mechanic. So, oh, wow, all right, cool. And so I joined, and I had to go and take tests, and I passed all the tests that they made me take. And then the recruiter come for me one early morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning, so I could go to boot camp. And my mom was at the door, and she goes, you don't have to go. And I said, yeah, I need to go, because Vietnam was going on still. So I went with the recruiter, and I went to boot camp, and I did all my schools and everything. But I wound up staying in for 20 years. And after the 20 years was over, I decided to do drag racing. And so that's where I'm at right now, enjoying that and trying to do my best. Okay, if you're still watching this, thank you. I know it's a long video. I appreciate everything. Don't forget, you can leave a comment, and Thanks again.